The fire marshal Linda from the first floor caught me at the mailboxes. Valentina, listen, I don't want to stick my nose in, but yesterday a woman came by from social services. She was asking about you, how you're getting on, whether I've noticed anything. Said a complaint came in from family that an elderly woman isn't managing her household, might be a danger to herself. I looked at the mailboxes. What did you tell her? I said you're fine, better than the rest of us put together. They left, but I thought you should know. I thanked her, took the stairs, didn't take the elevator, 3 flights. I walked slowly and I thought, family, complaint from family, not managing her household. I opened the door. From the living room, Karina's voice on the phone with someone. Yes, everything's moving along. I think it'll be resolved quickly. I took off my coat, hung it up, walked into the living room, stopped. The corner by the window, that's where Nikolai's armchair stood, was taken up by a bundle of dry birch branches in a floor vase. The vase was new, tall, white. Mine was gone. The shelf where the photographs lived, a linen runner now. A candle, some kind of stone. No photographs, not one. Not the wedding photo, not the one of Andre, 7 years old, first day of school, holding his briefcase, grinning like he'd won something. By the radiator, a basket of hay. Real hay. The smell hit the whole room. Above the sofa, 8 paper lanterns, each one with a candle inside, strung on a cord from one curtain rod to the other. Karina put her phone away, looked at me. Oh, you're back. Well, I've been rearranging a bit for the portfolio. Where are the photographs? In a box, in the storage closet. They didn't work with the concept. My husband is in those photographs. My son, 7 years old, first day of school. Valentina, they're just photographs. You can hang them in your bedroom. I looked at her. Karina, you called social services. Something moved across her face. Not shame, calculation. We're worried about you. You told them I'm not managing my household. That's the truth. You resist every change. You live in the past. That's not healthy in my home. You removed photographs of my dead husband. You put hay and open flames in my living room. You called to have me removed. Pause. And you call that concern? We're a young family. We need to live. You can't hold on to this apartment forever like the owner. Karina went quiet. Outside, February. Someone scraping ice off the walkway below. From the kitchen, Andre, the sound of a mug set down, then nothing. He'd heard everything and chosen the kitchen. I looked at the paper lantern above my sofa, at the candle inside it, at the ceiling above, wooden beams, 1981 construction. 31 years I walked through other people's buildings with a clipboard and a code book. I know what a violation looks like when it's dressed up as decor. They wanted to remove me from my own home. All right, my name is Valentina Ivanovna Ognieva, Senior Fire Safety Inspector, retired, or so people assume. I looked at the hay, at the lanterns, at the candles. Too bad they moved the photographs. I won't be needing them. I'll be needing something else entirely. She turned toward the hallway. Leave everything as it is. Don't touch any of it. What? Already in the doorway. Don't touch it. Let it stay. I went to my room, found my phone, found the number. Sergei Nikolaevich, State Fire Inspection, student of Fyodor Kuzmich, who taught me everything worth knowing. Sergei, it's Ognieva.
I have an object that needs inspection. Urgent. Write down the address. Sergei Nikolaevich picked up on the second ring. He didn't ask questions.
That's what 30 years of professional respect looks like. You say, I have an object, and the man on the other end says, when do you want us there, without needing the whole story. Day after tomorrow, morning. And Sergei, bring the full checklist. How full? The kind I used on the third building in '94. A pause. Understood. 8 o'clock. I put the phone down, sat on the edge of my bed, looked at the wall. Behind that wall, my living room. Karina's living room now, apparently. I could hear her moving around in there, the scrape of the basket being shifted, the rustle of the branches. She was still arranging things, still decorating. I sat and I thought the way I used to think on the job, not with anger, but with method. You don't walk into a building furious. You walk in with a checklist. You observe, you document, you build a case so solid that when the order comes down, nobody can argue with a single line of it. So, what do I actually have here? September. Karina reorganized the kitchen spices. Said it was more practical. I didn't argue. It's a shared kitchen. Fine. October. She moved Nikolai's reading chair from the living room to the storage closet. Told Andre it was taking up too much space. Andre nodded. I found out 3 days later. November. She threw out my windowsill violets, the ones I'd had for 11 years. Said they were collecting dust. I came home and the windowsill was bare and clean and smelled like her cleaning spray. December. She started referring to the apartment as our place in phone conversations. I heard it through the wall. Come over to our place Saturday. Yes, it's a great location. We're fixing it up. Our place. January. I overheard her telling someone, a client I think, that the apartment had good bones but needed a complete reset. She said reset the way people say it when they mean erase. And now February. Hay, paper lanterns, candles. My husband's photograph in a cardboard box in the storage closet. And a call to social services. I'm not managing my household. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at my hands. These hands signed closure orders on 7 facilities. These hands wrote up the Krasnogorsk chemical plant in 1988 when the director offered me an envelope and I handed it back without opening it. These hands pulled Andre out of a burning dacha when he was 4 years old because I knew exactly which way the fire was moving and I moved faster. Not managing her household. I got up, went to the kitchen, put the kettle on. Andre was sitting at the table with both hands around a mug of cold tea, staring at nothing. I sat across from him. We didn't speak for a while. The kettle began to hiss. How long have you known? He didn't pretend not to understand. About the social services thing? A week, maybe 10 days. And you didn't tell me. She said it was just a consultation, just to understand the options. Options. Mom, she's not wrong that this place is, that we're all, it's complicated. Andre, she put hay in the living room with open candles. Your father's photographs are in a box. A woman from social services came to ask Linda whether I'm fit to live alone. Pause. That's what complicated looks like to you? He was quiet for a long time. The kettle boiled. I got up, made tea, set a cup in front of him. I'm not angry at you. I raised you too soft. That's on me. But I need you to understand something. This is my apartment. My name is on the deed. I've lived here since before you were born, and nobody, brief pause, nobody is going to document me into a care facility while I'm standing right here with a functioning brain and 31 years of knowing exactly how these processes work. Andre looked at his chi. What are you going to do? I'm going to do my job. You're retired. I stopped in the doorway. Retirement is a pension, Andrusha, not a personality change. The next morning was Tuesday. Cold. The kind of February cold that gets into your coat at the collar and stays there. Tamara Semyonovna was already waiting at the building entrance, wrapped in her enormous gray coat that she'd had since 1997 and refused to replace on principle. Well, good morning to you, too. Don't good morning me, Valya. Linda called me last night. Social services? I told her everything. The hay, the lanterns, the photographs in the box, the conversation at the table, Andre's face. Tamara walked beside me and listened without interrupting, which was unusual. Tamara Semyonovna Kryukova had not gone a full minute without interrupting someone since approximately 1985. When I finished, she was quiet for another few seconds. Then, the absolute nerve. Yes, Valya. She called social services on you. On you. The woman who made Sidorov from building management cry at a safety inspection in 2003. He didn't cry. His eyes watered. His eyes watered while he was crying. She kicked a chunk of ice off the path. So, what are you doing? You're doing something. I can tell from your voice. I made a phone call yesterday. To who? Sergei Nikolaevich, State Fire Inspection. Tamara stopped walking. I took 3 more steps before I stopped and turned around. She was standing in the middle of the path, staring at me. You called the fire inspector. He was Fyodor Kuzmich's best student, very thorough. For your own apartment. For an object presenting multiple violations of fire safety code. The address happens to be mine. Tamara caught up. For a moment she said nothing. Then she started laughing. The big, unself-conscious laugh that had embarrassed her children at school events for 20 years. Valya, you absolute... What does she have in there? Remind me? Hey, Class G4 combustibility. Paper lanterns, Class G3. Open flame sources inside the lanterns. Linen garlands, G2. Wooden load-bearing beams, 1981 construction. I paused. In combination, it's a Category 1 violation. Category 1? In your living room? In my living room that she turned into her portfolio. Tamara shook her head slowly, still smiling. You know what she's going to say. She's going to say you called them out of spite. She is. And what do you say to that? I say, the hay is real, the candles are real, the G4 classification doesn't care about anyone's feelings. They walked to the end of the path, turned, started back. Tamara, she told social services I'm not managing my household. I know. So I'm going to demonstrate exactly how well I manage it. Tamara looked at her sideways. You know, when you get very calm like this, you remind me of that cat on Lenina Street. The one that sat very still outside the mouse hole for 4 hours, and then, I remember. Yes, I thought you might. They walked back toward the building in companionable silence. The cold was still there, so was the ice. Neither of them slipped. They'd been navigating this particular path for 11 winters, and they knew exactly where the dangerous patches were. Back in the apartment, Karina was on a video call at the kitchen table, laptop open, a coffee mug leaving a ring on my tablecloth. Yes, the whole concept is Scandinavian organic, dried botanicals, linen, candlelight. It photographs beautifully. The base space is a standard Soviet panel construction, but that's actually part of the charm. The contrast is very... She glanced up when I came in, continued her call without pausing. I put the kettle on, got a cloth, wiped the ring from under her mug while she was still talking. She moved the mug, didn't say anything, kept talking. I have a shoot scheduled Thursday. The client wants to see the full setup before they commit to the kitchen redesign. I made my tea, went to my room, sat down at my desk, the old one, the one I'd had since I was at the Institute, the one with the drawer that sticks and has to be lifted slightly before it opens. I opened it. Inside, my old work notebooks, code references, inspection forms, blank from before they digitized everything. I took out a fresh sheet of paper, started writing. Not a complaint, not yet. Something better. A pre-inspection memo, the kind I used to prepare before walking into a facility. A full accounting of every potential violation, documented in order of severity with relevant code citations and photographic evidence requirements. Old habits. I wrote for 40 minutes. Then I got up, went to the living room while Karina was still on her call in the kitchen, and took 12 photographs on my phone. Systematic. The hay in the basket, close-up showing quantity and material. The paper lanterns showing proximity to the linen garland. The candles showing that they were real wax, not battery-operated. The ceiling showing the wooden beams. I returned to my room, attached the photographs to an email, sent it to Sergei Nikolaevich with the subject line, Pre-inspection documentation. Residential address, see attached. His reply came in 4 minutes. Received, Thursday, 9 a.m. I'll bring Petrov. He does the written orders now. I read the email twice, closed my phone, looked at the wall. Behind it, my living room, full of hay and paper and open flame and someone else's ambition.
Thursday. Wednesday arrived first, and with it, the photographer. He was young, 25 maybe, large backpack, expensive camera, the slightly apologetic look of someone who suspects he's walked into a situation and isn't sure what kind. Karina met him at the door at 10 in the morning. Okay, we're working in the living room. I've set everything up. I just need you to get the window light first, then we'll do the detail shots. The hay, the lanterns, the botanical arrangement. Sure. Is this your, it's a project space? Come through. I was sitting in the kitchen with my tea and my newspaper. I heard them go past. Then from the living room, perfect, exactly like the reference. Can you get the lanterns from below? I want the candles lit for the atmosphere shots. The candles? Inside the paper ones? Yes, that's the whole point. The living light. It's what makes it feel real. I turned a page of my newspaper. Is that, paper and open flame? It'll be fine for 20 minutes. We just need the shots. I set down my newspaper, stood up, walked to the living room door, opened it. The photographer was crouching with his camera, looking up at the lanterns. Karina was lighting the third candle with a long match. The hay basket was directly beneath the garland. The garland was directly beneath the lanterns. I went to the storage closet, retrieved the fire extinguisher, the good one, the CO2 unit I'd brought from my old workplace when they upgraded the fleet in 2019. Set it in the middle of the hallway, directly visible from the living room door. Came back to the kitchen, sat down, picked up my newspaper. 30 seconds later, footsteps. Karina appeared in the kitchen doorway, looked at the extinguisher in the hall, looked at me. What is that doing there?
Safety equipment, required within 30 meters of an open flame source. You have 8 open flame sources in the living room. I've met the requirement. You're doing this on purpose. I'm complying with fire safety code. Would you prefer I didn't? The photographer appeared behind her, looking deeply uncomfortable. Maybe we should use the battery candles. We're using real candles. She turned back to me. Valentina Ivanovna, can you please just, for one morning, not make everything into a problem? I looked up from my newspaper. The problem is 8 lit candles inside paper structures above a basket of hay in a residential building with wooden overhead beams. I didn't create that problem. I just put a fire extinguisher next to it.
Silence. The photographer had developed a sudden intense interest in his camera settings. Karina stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned, went back to the living room, and closed the door. I heard her say, very quietly, "Just work around it. Crop it out." I went back to my newspaper. The extinguisher stayed in the hall. That evening, Karina had a client, a woman, perhaps 40, well-dressed, the purposeful energy of someone who had already decided to spend money and was only here to confirm that decision. Karina met her at the door, walked her through to the living room. I was coming out of the bathroom. They were in the hallway. The concept here is organic Scandinavian. We're working with the natural materials, the texture contrast, the candlelight. It photographs extremely well, and it reads as very current in the market. The client was looking around. Her eyes passed over me. "And this is," without missing a beat, "my mother-in-law. She lives here. Don't worry about it. We work around her."
We work around her, in her own apartment. Said to a stranger, in a tone you'd use about a piece of furniture that wasn't quite right but couldn't be replaced yet. The client gave me a brief, polite smile, the kind you give to furniture. I smiled back. "Good evening. Are you thinking of hiring Karina for your home?" "Yes, actually. I have a living room that needs—" "Wonderful. I'd be happy to show you the setup she's created here. Since you'd be making a decision based on it," I gestured toward the living room. "Please." Karina's jaw tightened by exactly 2 millimeters. I've been watching faces for 68 years. I noticed 2 millimeters. We all went into the living room. The client looked around appreciatively. The branches, the linen, the lanterns. It did look beautiful, genuinely. Karina had an eye. I'd give her that. "This is lovely. The lanterns especially." "Paper, yes, with real wax candles inside." I looked up at them. "Class G3 combustibility for the paper. The hay there is G4. That's the highest rating. The garland is linen, G2. I smiled at the client. I spent 31 years as a senior fire safety inspector. I always find it useful to know these things when I'm making decisions about my home. A small silence. G4 is bad? It means it ignites fastest and burns hottest. I nodded toward the ceiling. The beams up there are original 1981 wood construction, untreated. The client looked at the ceiling, then at the hay, then at the lit candle in the nearest lantern. Valentina Ivanovna? I'm sure Karina can discuss alternative materials. Battery candles look very similar these days. And dried flowers instead of hay, equally textural, much lower combustibility. I patted the client's arm lightly. You'd want to ask about those substitutions before signing anything, just professionally speaking. I smiled at them both, walked out. Behind me, silence. Then the low, taut sound of Karina beginning to repair the conversation. I went to my room, sat down, felt for the first time in several weeks entirely like myself. That night, after the client left and Karina had gone to bed, Andre came and sat in the kitchen doorway. Not at the table, in the doorway. Like he hadn't fully committed to the conversation yet. I was making chamomile tea. I made 2 cups, set one on the table, sat down. He came in, sat. Mom, the thing today with the client. Yes? You can't just... She had a client. That's her work. She told the client not to worry about me, as though I were a drafty window. She didn't mean it like, Andre, she meant it exactly like that. Pause. I'm not angry. I want you to understand that. I'm not angry anymore.
I was angry for about 4 hours after I spoke to Linda. Then I stopped being angry and started thinking clearly. I wrapped my hands around the cup. Your wife called social services and told them I'm not capable of independent living. She did this in order to have grounds to move me out of my own apartment so she can use it as a commercial showroom. Andre was quiet. I know you love her. I know this is difficult. But I need you to understand what's actually happening here, because you keep looking at the floor when it gets uncomfortable, and I need you to look at me. He looked at her. He had his father's eyes. That had always been both a comfort and a difficulty. I'm not going anywhere, Andrusha. Not to a facility, not to a smaller room, not to anywhere that isn't this apartment where I have lived for 42 years and where your father died and where I am still, as of today, the legal owner.
She looked at him steadily. So the question is what you're going to do. Not me, you. Long silence. I don't know how to. I know. She stood, picked up her cup. Think about it. You have until tomorrow morning, because tomorrow morning things are going to start moving, and I'd like to know which side of the room you're standing on. She went to bed, left his tea on the table. Thursday came, gray and cold, the way February mornings in this city always do, as though the sky itself had looked at the calendar and decided not to bother. I was up at 7, dressed properly, not housecoat and slippers, but my good wool trousers and the dark blue jacket I used to wear on formal inspections, the one with the small pin from the Institute's 30-year anniversary on the lapel. Karina came into the kitchen at 8:15 in a silk robe, phone in hand, clearly still half asleep. She stopped when she saw how I was dressed. "Why are you dressed like that?" "I have visitors coming." "What visitors?" "State fire inspection. I filed a complaint as the apartment's registered owner regarding fire safety violations in the residential space." The silence that followed had a very specific texture, the texture of someone understanding, all at once, several things at the same time. "You didn't. They'll be here in 40 minutes. You might want to get dressed." "You called the fire inspectors on your own apartment?" "On violations occurring within my apartment, yes. It's not only my right as the registered owner, it's technically my civic obligation given my professional background. I'd feel uncomfortable ignoring it." "Andre!" Andre appeared in the kitchen doorway, already dressed. He'd been up, I realized. He'd heard the conversation. He looked at Karina, then at me, then at Karina.
"Mom told me last night they were coming." "And you didn't tell me?" "No."
Karina stared at him. That was, as far as I could tell, the first time in their marriage that Andre had said no to her and stayed in the room afterward. He looked slightly terrified, but he didn't move. I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, set it in the rack. "I'll be in the living room." They arrived at 9 on the dot. Sergei Nikolaevich, 60 now, heavier than when I'd last seen him, still with that careful, methodical way of moving that Fyodor Kuzmich had drilled into all of us. Behind him, a younger man with a clipboard, Pietrov, who did the written orders now. "Valentina Ivanovna, it's been too long." "It has. Come in. I'll show you the primary area of concern." Karina was standing in the hallway, fully dressed now. She'd moved fast, I'd give her that. Arms crossed, chin up, the posture of someone who had decided that dignity was the only card left. I want to be clear that this setup is temporary. It's a professional photography installation, not a permanent arrangement. We'll note that in the report. He turned to me. Shall we? We went into the living room. I stood to one side and let him work. That's what you do when you know what you're doing. You step back and let the process run. You don't need to narrate it.
Sergei moved through the room the way I used to, systematic, starting at the entrance, working clockwise. He crouched by the hay basket, picked up a small handful, examined it. Natural hay, combustibility class G4, quantity approximately, he looked at the basket, 8 to 10 kilograms, present in proximity to open flame sources and flammable textile materials, Pietrov wrote. Paper lanterns, 8 units.
Each containing a wax candle, he checked one, currently unlit but evidence of recent burning. Paper combustibility class G3. Positioned, he looked up, approximately 20 centimeters below the linen garland, 40 centimeters below the ceiling. This is for a photo shoot, not for daily use. Noted. He continued to Petrov. Linen garland, full span of the ceiling space, class G2. Wooden structural beams, original 1981 construction. He stood, looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then he looked at me. We had both spent careers standing in rooms exactly like this one. Rooms where someone had done something that seemed fine right up until it wasn't. We didn't need to say anything about it. Violation of Article 49 of the Fire Safety Regulations. Multiple concurrent combustibility hazards in residential space. Mandatory order to remove. Petrov wrote. Karina watched him write. Her face in that moment was doing several things at once. Fury and calculation, and something that might, in another person, have been the beginning of understanding. Petrov read the order aloud in the hallway, while Sergei stood with his hands clasped. The registered owner and residents of the premises are hereby required to remove all Class G3 and G4 combustibility materials from the residential living space within 24 hours of this notice. Open flame sources within paper or textile housings are prohibited in residential spaces with wooden structural elements. Failure to comply within the stated period will result in a fine of 3,000 rubles per violation, escalating to 50,000 rubles per violation upon repeat inspection. He handed the paper to Karina. She was the one standing closest. She took it, looked at me. You set this up. From the beginning. You knew exactly what you were doing. I knew exactly what you were doing.
Brief pause. There's a difference. This is my work. This is my portfolio. You just destroyed. I filed a complaint about hay and candles in my living room. I looked at the order in her hands. The hay and the candles are real. The code is real. I didn't invent any of it. You could have just talked to me. I thought about Linda at the mailboxes. I thought about the phone call to social services. I thought about, we work around her, said to a stranger in my own home. You talked to social services before you talked to me. She had nothing to say to that. Sergei touched my elbow lightly as he passed. Good to see you, Valentina Ivanovna. You too, Seryozha. Give my regards to your family. He and Petrov left. The door closed. The three of us stood in the hallway, me, Andrei, Karina, with the inspection order between us and the smell of hay still coming from the living room. She cleared it that afternoon. I watched from the kitchen doorway as she carried the hay basket out, the branches, the lanterns. She worked quickly and silently, the way people work when they're too angry to speak and too proud to show how angry they are. Andrei helped her carry the larger pieces. He didn't say anything either. When the living room was empty again, just the furniture, just the walls, just the space that had been mine for 42 years and had briefly, for a few weeks, belonged to someone else's ambition, I went in.
stood in the middle of it, got the box from the storage closet, took out the wedding photograph, set it on the shelf. Took out Andre's first day of school photograph, set it next to the wedding photograph. Took out the picture of Nikolai at the dacha, the summer he turned 50, sunburned, slightly annoyed at being photographed, the happiest I'd ever seen him. Set it in the corner where it had always been.
Karina came to the living room doorway, empty basket in hand. Stopped when she saw what I was doing. I didn't look at her. Set the last photograph down, straightened it. There's a studio space on Lenina Street that rents by the day. Reasonable rates, clean, good natural light, I'm told. Silence. You can do your portfolio there. She didn't answer. After a moment, I heard her walk away. That evening, I called Tamara. Well? They came. They wrote the order. She cleared everything out. A pause. Then, and the photographs are back. Tamara was quiet for a moment. How are you feeling? I thought about it. Really thought about it. The way you can when the thing is over and you're sitting in your own living room, in your own chair, and the photographs are where they belong. Tired. And fine. Valia. Talma. You know she's not going to forgive you. No, probably not. And Andre? I looked at Nikolai's photograph, the sunburned summer, the slightly annoyed expression. He said no to her today, for the first time, I think. Pause. We'll see what that means. Tamara exhaled. I'm coming over tomorrow morning. I'm bringing the good cookies, not the dry ones. The dry ones are fine. The good ones. You earned the good ones. I said goodnight, sat in the quiet for a while. Outside, February. Someone's window lit up on the building across the yard. A child's shape moving past it, then gone. 42 years in this apartment. I know every sound it makes at night. The pipes, the elevator, the particular creak of the parquet near the bathroom door. I know the way the winter light comes in at an angle in the mornings and hits the shelf where the photographs are. I knew it all before. I know it now. Some things you only understand the value of when someone tries to take them from you. The next morning, Friday, I came out to find a document on the kitchen table, typed, 2 pages, placed in the center of the table with a pen beside it. I sat down, read it. It was a cohabitation agreement. Andre had written it. I could tell from the phrasing, careful, slightly formal, the way engineers write when they're trying to be precise. It outlined shared spaces, individual spaces, financial contributions, house rules. Section 4 was titled Fire Safety and Building Code Compliance and consisted of a single line. All interior design choices require approval of the registered apartment owner. At the bottom, 2 signature lines. His name was already signed on one. I read the whole thing twice. Then I picked up the pen. Karina came into the kitchen while I was signing, stopped, looked at the document, looked at Andre, who was standing by the window with his coffee, looking out. You didn't tell me you were doing this. Without turning from window. No. We should have discussed, Karina, sign it or don't sign it, but it's going on the refrigerator either way. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at me. I set down the pen, pushed the document toward the empty signature line, said nothing. She picked up the pen. There was a long pause, the kind that contains a whole argument that doesn't get spoken because speaking it would require admitting something out loud. Then she signed. Andre took the document, folded it,
put it on the refrigerator under the magnet from Sochi that had been there since 2009. I made tea, set 3 cups on the table. We sat down. Nobody said anything for a while. Outside, the sound of the courtyard coming to life, someone's car starting, the school kids from the second entrance going past.
I was going to ask, do you want eggs? Andre looked up.
Yeah, sure. Karina looked at her cup. Yes, thank you. I got up and made eggs. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't resolution. It was breakfast, which is, in its own quiet way, a kind of answer. Saturday morning, cold again, but with actual sunlight for the first time in 2 weeks. Tamara was waiting at the entrance with a paper bag that smelled of cinnamon. The good cookies, as promised. She handed me the bag, fell into step. So, tell me everything, from the beginning, leave nothing out. We walked. I told her. The inspection, the order, the afternoon of Karina clearing the living room, the document on the kitchen table, the breakfast. Tamara listened, properly listened, for the second time in 1 week, which was some kind of record. When I finished, she was quiet. Then, the document on the refrigerator, that was Andre. That was Andre. We walked to the end of the path, turned around. Valia, do you think she'll actually, going forward? I think she'll behave herself for a while, and then she'll try something else, something smaller, and we'll deal with that when it happens. Pause. That's how it works. You sound like an inspector. I am an inspector. Retired. Tell her that. Tamara laughed, the big laugh, the one that turned heads. The sun was doing something with the ice on the path, making it look almost decorative, almost intentional. I thought about Nikolai's photograph on the shelf, about Andre's signature on the document, about Karina's, given reluctantly, with a jaw set against something, but given. Toma, do you know what Fyodor Kuzmich used to say about the hardest cases? What?
He said, the building doesn't care whether you love it or hate it. It only cares whether you know the code. I looked at the path ahead. I always thought he was talking about buildings. And now? Now I think he was talking about everything. We walked on. The courtyard was quiet and cold and ours.